Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Tyranny with me, Bring It On. Let's speak to our peers first. We'll speak to Fatebinder Rogulis. Fatebinder, you return. Rogulis looks you up and down with an inscrutable expression. You look as if you have questions for me to untangle. Ask. I'm feeling generous. Tell me about some of the past Archons. Nox Myria, the Archon of Pestilence, was disliked in her circles. But she opened her eyes to see, and her mouth to speak. It is said that flies would gust into the air, swarming so thick as to blacken the sky. She died in the 20th year of her birth, following a string of unusual and grotesque symptoms. Can you click on that again? Oh, look at that. Rin, the second Archon of Lightning, often struggled to control the power that roiled within him. If he suffered but a single slip of concentration, he risked an instant execution into his touch. Or so he claimed after killing the first Archon of Water during a diplomatic embrace. Much that was known has been lost regarding the first Archon of Frost, but his talents were improved upon by three following Archons, sisters born together and ever since seen apart. It said that Rana, Nuneval, and Slayer were so cold at birth, they were thought stillborn. No one is entirely sure how many Archons Kyros has killed, but I would guess it numbers several dozen or more, based on the various histories I've been able to piece together. Morimus of the Mire, the Archon of Fungus, he must have been a pretty fun guy, produced most of the flora in the swampland of Nettlebog. A stooped hermit who rather resembled a dapperling, he was never once reported to have left his swamp. Some believe he still lives within the land, though there has been no sighting of him in nearly 300 years. I've told you all that I wish. If you tax my time further, ask about something else. Where did you study when you were younger? I've been the ward of the court for as long as I've been aware. As a child, I demonstrated wholly perfect recall, and I absorbed all that Tunon and my tutors had to offer. I remember hating all the lectures and wishing I could learn at my pace. Funny how I envied the sages of the Tears, how they could spend their whole lives reading and never exhaust their library. Of course, now the Vellum Citadel is nothing more than a burning waste. What do you think about the other Fatebinders? You'll need to be more specific than that, I'm afraid. There is, on last count, slightly more than a handful of us. What's your opinion on the Fatebinder of War? Nuneval's keen, brash, and a hardy braggart with a fondness for bloodshed. He can be utterly unbearable at times. His justice is fair, even if he skews toward rather exacting and uncompromising punishments at times. What's your opinion on the Fatebinder of Balance? Callio is the finest among us. Her discernment is beyond reproach, and she is perhaps Tunon's favorite. She has a mind for suspicion and observation that makes others uneasy. We who operate within the confines of the law have nothing to fear, of course. What's your opinion of me? You follow an orderly path, regimented and organized. Perhaps too orderly for our station, but it's neither here nor there if you execute your job with wisdom. Be sure you don't stray to the path of chaos. Down that way lies rebellion. Can you tell me about the old walls and the Bane? With which should I start? Tell me about the old walls. We know little enough about the ancient structures, save that they predate all historical record. The forbidding ruins crisscross the tiers and north alike, centuries before we raised our cities. The only one old enough to guess is likely Kyros. Tell me about the Bane. The Bane are found in the old walls, but much of their defining qualities still escape me. They're creatures of smoke, claw, and fang. If you find yourself unfortunate enough to fight one, remember that spells are effective against them, but grab the attention of others lurking near. I'd like to know more about the Tiers. The political entities of the Tiers are essentially split between the Bastard Tier, the Younger Realms, and the Free Cities. Of which would you like to know? What can you tell me about the Bastard Tier? The Bastard Tier is the most northern of the Tiers, was the first to bow to Kyros' reign, though the knee they bent fell unwillingly. Kyros had his eye on the Bastard Tier for many years before he marched on her capital city. This is the hub of trade and commerce. Claim the markets, and the people will follow. I'm curious to know more about the Younger Realms. The Younger Realms sprawl the middle and southernmost tiers, and can be catalogued as follows. Apex, Azure, Haven, and Stalwart. Azure was renowned for its exceptionally fertile land, which fed the whole of the tiers. As before Kyros' Edict of Stone blighted the land. Stalwart is also worth mention, for it comprises the whole of the southernmost tier, and proves the toughest and most defensible of the realms. It is often said that the other realms will not fall, while Stalwart yet stands. The local army wages bitter war against the disfavored, though the Edict of Storms has cut off the best of their defenses. It is only a matter of time before Stalwart falls. I'd like to hear about the free cities. There are 3 free cities remaining: Last Harbor, Spiral's Maw, and Barrick and Chains. The first and strongest of the free cities was the Setting Sun, which Kyros crushed at 429 with the Edict of Tumult. After that, the remaining free cities were quick to surrender. I want to talk about the sages. I will not speak of the sages. They are no better than charlatans and cons, wholly selfish in their ill pursuit to hoard all knowledge from others. They are self-blinded by their own deceptions and clever manipulations. They alone cause their own undoing, and are solely to blame for the burning library, one of the most grievous of wrongs in the known histories, for which they can never be forgiven. Surprised Lancery didn't chirp in there. Alright, Callio. Alright. Donald, I see you've returned to the fold. Your exploits and vengeance well are the matter of some discussion. The Fate Minder of Balance regards you with a discerning eye, and for a moment, you feel as if she's trying to peer into the very depths of your mind. What can I do for you? Callio touches a gentle hand to your shoulder. Has anything happened while I was away? There have been whispers that Cairn grew disloyal to Graven Ash's command during the campaign in Azure. I took up the mantle of investigation near Plainsgate, and judging the rumors to be true, dispatched Cairn by proclaiming Kyros' Edict of Stone. The very earth turned against the traitorous Archon, as the region split asunder in righteous judgment. You seem to know much of my actions. Have you been spying on me? I don't act so surprised. It is my duty to ensure that those who operate under the Adjudicator's name adhere to the spirit of his law, if not the very letter. Of course, I have nothing to hide. So you say, I have to weigh all evidence presented before me with an objective eye. I assume you're being watched, Fatebinder, but don't concern yourself. That's no more than any citizen of the Empire can expect. How have you occupied your time in the Bastard City? Tunon sends me on assignments here and there. I settle disputes between the locals when the Adjudicator is otherwise occupied. She smirks. Everything from trade disagreements to pushing core squatters out of the basement. Real rewarding work. She waves it off. The glory of war is not an honor reserved for the likes of for us. We're the fish swimming in Tunon's wake, picking up scraps along the way. We're rather large and imposing compared to the bottom feeders of the tiers, but fish all the same. I'd like to know more about Tunon. Tunon is our overlord's fair and exacting adjudicator. He speaks with the voice of Kyros' law, and his word is judgment. All this and more you can learn by asking him yourself. Go on, or does he intimidate you still? She chuckles softly. I jest, of course. I have some concerns about the war. You're free to share them in my confidence. She leans in closer. Your armies squabble at each other's throats. Divided, we cannot win. I'm less concerned about the armies than the Archons themselves. There can be no order when mountains collide. Who do you see as champion? The disfavored. Our elite troops will bring us to victory. There is wisdom behind your reasoning. Wars are won through cunning, strategy, and strength. The disfavored are outmatched only in number on the battlefield. Considering their opposition, passionate soldiers more than make up the difference. Alright, and Nuneval. Donald. You return unscathed and more acclaimed than ever, as seems to be your way. The Fatebinder of War claps you good-naturedly, with excessive strength on the back. Come, you must regale me with all that your journey has held. I could use a moment of respite between friends. He regards you with a warm, boisterous smile. I speak as you wish. I pay a boar's weight in rings to know your thoughts. He rakes a hand through his thick, red beard, and offers you a grin. Come, let us speak freely. How are you singled out to become a Fatebinder? I cannot speak for the other Fatebinders, but I joined the court when I was yet still a boy, impetuous beyond reason. I have been imprisoned with a death sentence for the crime of desecrating corpses. He laughs hard and hearty. It was nothing so exciting as you're no doubt imagining. I was merely burning corpses that awaited burial. Before the local authority could see me to the gallows, the adjudicator claimed me a great talent waiting to be realized, needing only to be steered. Why burn the bodies? Corpses piling in the street spread plague faster than the filthiest of rats. I was but 10 and a weak fighter. I did what I could for my homeland. Why was it a crime? There was a time when even the Northmen were of superstitious stock, a time before Kyros brought reason to the realms. The people of my city believed that, without proper rites, I was cheating our fallen warriors from returning to the land. It's a good thing Tunon spared you. As I have said, the adjudicator saw within me something of rare value, as is true for us all. You as well were chosen for our great court, for which I am grateful. As a Fatebinder of war, I rely heavily on your talents. Talk about something else? By all means, you're free to pick my mind with enthusiasm. I'm curious about Tunon's masks. They can be rather unsettling, can't they? Even to one such as me. But I can assure you, the innocent need not fear their objective, emotionless gaze. What of the adjudicator's masks specifically would you like to know? I want to know about the silent face. The silent face is the face that Tunon shows to us now. And for that we are fortunate beyond belief. The silent face is a patient face, a face for listening as Tunon presides over all matters brought to the court, taking great pains to ensure all sides of an issue are heard. I want to know about the Face of Resolve. Tunon's last known donning of the Face of Resolve was the moment he judged and called ruin to half the districts in the bastard city. Since then, he has ruled our northern tier justly, calmly, with efficient diplomacy. I want to know about the face that is no more. Tunon is said to have worn a third mask in aeons past. I've heard rumor that the face displeased Kyros, and thus was destroyed, as happens to all persons and objects that displease our overlord. Have you ever seen Tunon change his masks? And the way that you or I would change our raiment? No, not as such. And yet I have seen the masks shift. They switch without the adjudicator or anyone so much as laying a hand on them. It's not something you can watch unfold. After a time, you merely realize it has already happened. There is work enough for the court that we shouldn't occupy ourselves wondering over mysteries. Could you remind me of the history and origin of the Fatebinders? The seasoned warrior rubs a finger against a line of stubble along his cheek. We are a relatively young order, though we have spanned these past 2 centuries. While the voice of Nerat and Graven Ash need armies to execute their will, Tunon wields but a modest court of vassals. We exist as the extension of his law. There is no place in Alateratus beyond our judgment. Tell me about Kyros' armies, our allies. Ah yes, with friends like these, our work is often self-explanatory. Were you asking about the Scarlet Chorus or the Disfavored? The Scarlet Chorus. Scarlet Chorus soldiers hail from every corner of every realm. As the chorus marches, it conscripts indiscriminately from those it has conquered to replenish its ranks. There's no continuity of command in the chorus. Nerat allows, encourages even, the strong to challenge their leaders. But the chorus has numbers, and brute force is almost always a viable solution, much as Rogueless insists otherwise. Besides, the Scarlet Chorus draws strength from the multitudes it swallows. Its blood chanters have taken knowledge from various tiers mystics, and many of the chorus's best soldiers were grown here in the south. Alright, the Disfavored. The Disfavored are the iron grip of Kyros' great phalanx. Armed with the best weapons, the most comprehensive training, led by the brilliant Graven Ash, the Disfavored have no equals in open battle. The Legion has a saying, Graven Ash protects, and it's no empty boast. The Archon of War is able to lend his will and strength to his soldiers, and give them endurance beyond human limits. I have great respect for the disfavored, but I know where I stand with them. They're a very close-knit band, all of them from northern families, many of them related to each other. Nuneval sighs, his smile wistful. But considering our role in the Great Hierarchy, I can't fault General Ash for being selective. I claim the spire at Vendrian's well. So the court's whispers are true. The Fatebinder rubs his fingers along the underside of his chin, pondering his thoughts with great weight. After a moment, he offers you a wistful sort of smile. Someday, I'd like to witness for myself this tower that has risen above the realms like a blade thrust into the sky. I'd hear your past victories in the war or of recent events. Have you not yet tired of my tales, Donald? I do admit, I never tire of telling them. He laughs, hearty and deep. Very well then, let me champion the feats of my conquest. Let the glory of Kyros' reign fall on any ears that would hear of it. After you read the Edict of Storms, I was sent to take your place in the Blade Grave to help pacify the last of the stalwart defenders. Nuneval shakes his head with a loud sigh. Those storms, they are beyond compare. The winds are so strong they're reshaping the canyons, uprooting the forests. Such is the price of defiance. Okay, so he'll say more than one thing. Recently, I've taken to studying the prowess of the southern beastmen, particularly the wild tribes, and have reflected on their potential merit as allies. Oh, excuse me. I'm having a hard time reading this morning. My allergies are kicking. The Scarlet Course is wise to desire their strength. A strength I once faced, and myself barely survived. The disfavored ought to consider arming them for battle, rather than merely working them as slaves. You may be interested to know that as of late, I've entreated a forge-bound smith to craft me an iron sword, one he claims will not break in battle. However, and rather unfortunately, there appears to be an extended period of delay for the delivery of goods promised, even for a Fatebinder. I had a recent and inspiring exchange with a few brave men who had trespassed in the old walls. In fact, haven't enjoyed a spar quite so much in ages. Nearly felt ashamed to put them to the sword for their crimes. While they may not rival one's glorious feats in battle, I take pride in the small dispenses of justice I manage between my weekly drills and lectures. Just the other day, I pulled the teeth of a liar and strung them about his neck, so that he might consider his words with more care in the future. Okay. If but you could have come with me, my brother, on my latest mission to Haven. It was a rousing venture, rife with bloodshed and intrigue. Inspired by the Vendrian Guard, House Ducinius, or Ducinius? I'm gonna say Ducinius. I had a change of heart regarding her loyalties to the Overlord. So I rode without rest on rumors that they had fled to Ardent. Several days of hounding passed before I was able to locate them and ran their bellies. By my blade, the blood that once ruled Haven ran red in her streets. You've quite exhausted my tales for the moment. When this war is over, we should make a point of strolling across the ashes of the tears and speaking of our triumph.
On it.
Let's speak to our disfavored allies next. Didn't think I'd make it out of that pass alive. You've done well for the Legion, Fatebinder Sevius. Is that what she said? Fatebinder Sevius. Oh no, sorry, Sevius' name was overlapping. You've done well for the Legion, Fatebinder. Alright, Sevius? Anything beats a prolonged siege, eh, Fatebinder? Enjoy the war while you can. And Albatronus. Fatebinder. Lieutenant gives you a curt nod. I'm ill at ease in this polished hall, but I admit that it's a reprieve from the battlefield and training grounds. If Ash needs me to stay here and represent his interests throughout the occupation, then I'll be up to the task. It can't be worse than our days in Lethian's Crossing. Joking aside, you're generous to grant the disfavored control over this city. Even the Iron Legion needs a break from the front every once in a while. Thank goodness they don't have a lot to say, because I'm struggling to read today. Mocking Blaze? Let me let you right where you stand if you weren't for Tunon breathing down our necks. He ignores you with a stern and distant expression. Fatebinder. You're no stranger to Tunon's court, but I prefer to spend as little time here as possible. In spite of these closed walls, I feel strangely exposed. He glances up at Tunon. Fair warning. When you backed Ash, you were as good as signing your death warrant. But we shouldn't discuss such matters in a court of law. You make our time in the tiers an interesting one, won't you? He smiles for an uncomfortably long time. Of course you will. Alright, let's go speak to Tunon. Do a quick save. Alright, so I'm throwing in an edit right here. My power went out very briefly, and my recording, by the grace of Kyros, was spared. I'm going to pick it up right here before we speak to Tunon, so it's not interrupted.
This civil war, this feud, is an insult to Kyros' peace. It should not have taken the better part of a year to silence the last vestiges of the Oathbreakers.
Tunon regards you in a thoughtful silence. I agree, Your Honor.
Our allies squabble while our enemies regroup. It falls upon the court to measure the extent of the damage, and to execute the agents of disorder. I suspect that treachery, negligence, disunity, and greed have infected one or both of our esteemed allies. Until you are instructed otherwise, this matter is the court's primary focus. Graven Ash and the voices of Nerat must be examined in close detail. You are charged with observing the Archons and presenting your case that one of them has wrought chaos and disorder upon the tiers.
I'll make this my mission, Your Honor.
As always, you will be held accountable for what you do in the court's name, but you are free to conduct your investigation in the manner of your choosing. You must expect lies, misdirection, and manipulation. Suffer not such obstructions of justice. The disfavored seem the logical first step in your inquiry. The Legion holds you in some esteem, and Graven Ash has shown deference to the court in times past. No doubt the disfavored will be rife with accusations and evidence against the voices of Nerat. Graven Ash is a noble man, but never underestimate his capacity for deception. A wise general succeeds by knowing when to be unreadable to the enemy. You should, of course, speak with the Scarlet Chorus and gather their testimony, but it stands to reason that most in the chorus would sooner brag about a pauldron fashioned from your skull than entertain your questions. Do not regret killing the rabble that impede your investigation. They will be easily replaced.
Alright, I'll speak with the Archon of War.
Your fellow Fatebinders have been busy acting as my eyes and ears. I have a few leads for you to follow. You should, of course, speak with your brothers and sisters of the court if you need further counsel. Though the disfavored were triumphant in the Blade Grave, I understand that their troubles within the region are unfinished. Talk to the disfavored commanders serving in the Blade Grave. Perhaps they can shine some light on the origins of this feud. The Oathbreakers were reported to be using iron armaments, more than they might acquire from looting what few disfavored they killed. Any iron in the tiers not rusted through was made by forge-bound hands in Lethian's Crossing. Between craftsman and quartermaster, someone let iron fall into enemy hands. Investigate this matter and bring the thieves to justice. There is a final matter to discuss. A sensitive topic.
Though it's impossible to gauge from his expression, Tunon seems more wary than usual. What concerns the court, Your Honor?
In spite of the many shortcomings at Vendrian's Well, you managed to make a name for yourself. You proclaimed an Edict of Kyros, resolved its demanding conditions, and ascended the mountain spire. Any one of these feats would be worthy of recognition by the highest authority. You managed to accomplish 3.
Tunon hovers in observance, awaiting a response. I'm in a privileged position to accomplish incredible deeds.
It pleases me that you grasp your role, as long as you temper it with a sense of duty. Whether by design or by accident, you have captured the attention of Kyros' army and the local tiersmen alike. This is no small opportunity, and the court charges you with exploiting your new standing to its fullest potential. You have a title in our hierarchy. However, it's a little-known secret that one's standing in the world is determined by their infamy, their deeds, and how they come to be known. Mind this notion as you bring justice to this lawless frontier. There may come a time when your deeds speak for you louder than any title. Whatever you did to capture the attention of the masses at Vendrian's Well, I would encourage you to do so again.
Understood. I'll be known as the champion of justice.
Good. It falls to us to set a new standard for these southern barbarians. You are dismissed. Should the court have need of your presence, you will receive word. Go forth and do my bidding, and bring glory and honor to the tiers in Kyros' name.
Tunon raps his gavel against the floor, the singular note resounding throughout the hall. Let's wait to level up. And we don't get to ask him any questions, it looks like. Alright, let's level up Lantry. Wait, so I'm going to give him the Mage Slayer stance. So while in this stance, Lantry's attacks drain magical energy from their targets, silencing them and lowering their magic skills. So -5 to all magic skills for 30 seconds and silence for 2.3 seconds. Just go ahead and put him in that stance.
Right.
Oh no, Tunon's right here. Alright, let's talk to him real fast. You return. It is gratifying to see that the war has not caused you to forget your roots. What is it you wish to know? I have a request from Barrick of the Stone Shields. What does Barrick of the Stone Shields want of the court? He has made his displeasure known in a loud enough voice to collapse the tiers upon each other. The adjudicator glares down at Barrick. He came to inquire if the Forge Bound could help remove his armor. If he has become encased in iron, that is none of the court's concern. My Forge Bound smiths are occupied crafting weapons for the army. I would not have their focus diverted to liberate one soldier from his raiment. Stone Shield. Did his favor not have standards for the upkeep of arms and armor? Is this not one of your Archon's guiding principles? It is, Your Honor, but I found myself trapped in this junk pile after the Edict of Storms hit Stalwart. If you want to blame anyone, it should be Kyros. That's... I don't think that you should say that to Tunon. The adjudicator contemplates the matter in total silence. The moment drags on far longer than you suspect it warrants, but Tunon's interest does not abate for a moment. The soldier remained encased in his armor, eccentric though it may be, and all subjects of Kyros are forbidden to aid in its removal. Magic the likes of which none of us understand has touched the Stone Shield. It will not interfere with the will of Kyros. But I'm trapped. Barrick trails off, looking to you for answers. Say nothing. Such is the will of Kyros, and the will of the court. Tunon nods and bangs his gavel. Yeah, I'm not going to question Tunon's judgment, because earlier I even said I speak with the authority of Tunon, except for when he overrides a ruling. So if I question him, that goes against that whole dynamic. He tried. I suppose that counts for something. The adjudicator didn't say anything about me bending my way out of here, at least. Not that trying has ever made it better. Tell me about Kyros. Oops. Kyros is our overlord. She ushers us from the brink of chaos with a stern hand, and gestures to the way of peace. We're only too eager to follow in her perfect example. I have to be careful about what I say. I don't want to gain any wrath with Tunon. How old is Kyros? By our reckoning, her age upon Tyranny is magnificent. Her true span defies measurement by our limited construct of time. It'd be a waste to spend our few pitiable years attempting to solve that riddle of existence. I think of Kyros not as a subject to beginnings or endings. Kyros is, and Kyros will ever be. And what is your relationship to Kyros? She is my master, and I her dutiful pupil. In this respect, you and I are no different. I have the honor of Kyros' confidence. She trusts me to enact her law upon the boundless territory of her rule. I'm only too grateful to serve. I'm the voice of Kyros' will, the harbinger of her judgment, and the armor for justice. I'm not asking that. I'm not going to ask if Kyros' laws are fair, because obviously Tunon thinks so. And I don't think I should ask this either. Because I don't think he's going to know. No one knows if Kyros is a man or a woman, so I'm not going to ask that. Alright, ask but be cautious with your time. The tears do not rest. Tell me about Blood Mark. He is my headsman and an assassin without equal. His official designation in Kyros' hierarchy is the Archon of Shadows, though I wonder that he ever considers himself aught but a slayer of the unjust. How did he earn his title? His work away from the court takes Blood Mark to the dark places of the world, the tiers of the Northern Empire alike. Over time, Shadows became his dominion. They cloak him, protect him, even fight for him if the need arises. It is said that Blood Mark can travel to any place where shadows are cast. Only he would know this for certain. Does Blood Mark serve you alone? Your question is flawed. We're all servants of Kyros. The Archons are also agents of their own interests, those chosen few empowered to bring order to the world in accordance with Kyros' peace. At present, Blood Mark is my vassal, and I his patron. The relationship is not so different from Graven Ash and Cairn, the fallen Archon, or the voice of Nerat and his songbird Siren. Such partnerings and apprenticeships are common. They provide mutual benefit to the Archons involved, as well as a measure of oversight. Back to my other questions, you may proceed. I'm curious about you, Archon. Curiosity is not a trait that I encourage in my servants. Too often have I witnessed such activity, leading down a path to lawlessness. However, feel that a better understanding of me will inform your work, then I will allow it. What would you know? See, I feel like questions like this, like I want to ask it, but I know it's going to generate wrath with Tunon, and I don't like leaving dialogue highlighted, I guess, so it's not grayed out. I probably shouldn't ask about his mask either, right? Anyway, tell me about your rise to become an adjudicator, or to become adjudicator. Curb your ambition, student. My path to this dais is not one that can be replicated under any circumstances. However, if your curiosity is determined, I will tell you my story. Yeah, I wish to understand law and your execution of it. An admirable pursuit. Can't read. You know much of Kyros' law and the maintenance of order already. My history may tell you something of how it can be used to win wars. I came into the world centuries ago, before the dream of a unified Northern Empire was fully realized. My home country lay far from the borders of Kyros' realm, and our conquest was a matter of distant speculation. Decades before rumor of Kyros' approach grew in panicked volume, I familiarized myself with the intricacies of her law. It took me no time at all to realize the benefits of our inevitable subjugation. I took it upon myself to rise in my country's governance as an arbiter of law and drafter of covenants, building some notoriety from execution of fair justice. As my influence and trust of my people evolved, my decisions transcended to define future precedent. Go on. My countrymen could not have surmised was that I had woven into our customs the very backbone of Kyros' law. I set the stage for the conquest of our floundering nation to join the Overlord's empire. By the time the Overlord's armies presented themselves and offered terms of surrender, we had adopted Kyros' peace in all but name. Our absorption into the Northern Empire was a matter of legal formality, negligible changes to our already beloved document of law. The people credited me as the architect of peace, and for a time called me Tunon the Fair. As my opponents grew in their estimate, Kyros could not help but learn of the part I played in her bloodless victory. Kyros' law has a breadth of intricacies that is unapproachable to the masses. I was chosen to interpret and represent the Overlord's will across the Northern Empire and beyond, this time as adjudicator. It is my pride, my duty, my life. And what does it mean to be an Archon? I'm a figure of power and significance, and under Kyros' mandate, I'm able to exercise my authority for the benefit of all. Had I not earned the Overlord's approval, I would not stand tall before you. Did you come into power yourself, or did Kyros foster your talents? An astute question. Doubtless I exhibited some spark of potential of my own, insignificant, though enough to accomplish deeds of note. Only under Kyros' tutelage have I grown to these heights. Could anyone become an Archon? Absolutely not. Only a precious few grow into this authority, where otherwise, Tyrannos would descend into pandemonium. Those few who rise into power, few still have the self-control to make lawful use of their talents. And those who can, fewer still are deemed worthy of Kyros' approval. Is every Archon subservient to Kyros? All are subservient before Kyros. By intuit your meaning. The Overlord takes great pains to recognize our potential. Before an Archon comes into their power, they will have faced the harshest scrutiny by an agent of recruitment, if not Blooded Mark himself. Those who are found worthy of incredible deeds, but refuse to join their strength to the needs of the Empire, are doomed to die. Those who wish to make a name for themselves are invited into the fold, to serve and rule the needs of the Empire. That is the price of power in Kyros' hierarchy. Let's go back to my questions about you. Very well, Fatebinder. What would you know of me? I'm not going to ask about the mask. I think that's going to make him mad. Did you come up with the Office of Fatebinders? Indirectly, yes. Just as I am the representative of Kyros' law across Tyrannos, you are the face of my judgment for the people. I took inspiration from the Overlord's example, as we all should. The people needed an approachable face to settle their grievances, and I am not available to adjudicate on every sharecropper's dispute. The Fatebinders were an inevitable solution. I'm not going to doubt his statement, so back to my previous questions. What would you know? I wish to speak about matters of law. Then you're well situated. My court is the legal heart of this corrupt and uncivilized realm. What matters draw your curiosity? You're already well versed in Kyros' laws, but I'm happy to discuss the particulars. I wish to discuss Kyros' peace. The cornerstone of our wartime efforts, of course. Kyros' peace guarantees all willing supplicants under the Overlord's authority a place in her world. The exact wording of the bylaw is, your life is not yours to discard. The Overlord has plans for you. This extends to several spheres of influence. Among others, it grants protection to enemies who surrender in a time of war, and it forbids suicide. To dispense with the Overlord's vassal and property is prohibited. Remind me how the Overlord's name may be used. It is not forbidden to cross one's tongue with Kyros' name, but it behooves one to use caution and respect. The Overlord's name is not yours to give, whether to progeny, product, location, or abstraction. Slander of the Overlord is punishable by death. There's only one Kyros, and her name is safeguarded. No one may say Kyros' inhabit obfuscated by a second meaning. Neither will her name be associated to trivialities. A gambler will not attribute his fortune to Kyros' luck, or his misfortune to Kyros' scorn. Such an association lowers the Overlord in the public estimate, and is rightly considered slander most foul. Let us discuss the Old Walls. The Old Walls are forbidden, as are their contents and their denizens. Owning any item from the Old Walls is considered trespass, regardless of how it came into your possession. Mind that in the course of your travels. As the Old Walls extend across much of the tiers in Northern Empire alike, Kyros permits her servants to pass only when she has sculpted the landscape to permit traverse. Under no circumstances are you to enter a breach in the Old Walls, even for a task as innocent as crossing to the other side. If these restrictions seem too severe, I'd remind you that they are for the protection of Kyros' servants. The Overlord has no desire to see harm needlessly inflicted upon her loyal followers. Remind me of the Magician's Folly. Practitioners of the arcane arts must be sanctioned by one of Kyros' guilds, such as the Bloodchanters or Forgebound. Rogue magicians with a tenuous grasp of unknown powers will not be tolerated. A sanctioned mage whose spellcasting causes damage to life or property is lawfully deemed innocent. As long as they practice their art in the service of Kyros, all is forgiven. Now let's speak of quotas and sharing. The harvest blooms and blights by the will of Kyros. In times of lean, you will be fed. In times of wealth, you will feed others. This law is a sizable category unto itself, serving many needs at once, trade and tax being only two examples. The broadest intent of the law is to empower Kyros' subjects to care for their neighbor and expect care in return. You might take note of the law's application to trade. Merchants' right to peddle their wares is defined by permits granted annually. The regional authority has the right to decide if a merchant sells cabbage one year and sandals the next. Anyone breaking through their restrictions is subject to immediate forfeiture of all assets. You do not concern yourself over the nuances, at least until they apply to this contested realm in a time of peace. I'm curious about the restriction on forbidden knowledge. Kyros herself sets the standards of what can and cannot be known. These restrictions are rarely enforced, but they are worth taking into account. During the war, for example, Kyros deemed that the knowledge of the Vellum Citadel taboo. No one may possess the wisdom of that fallen repository, save Kyros herself. Calling it all taboo seems a bit like overkill, but to play Kyros' advocate, the world would hardly be safer if all had access to the lore of making poisons, or the art of arming brigands and fine bronze. This is for the protection of her subjects. Before the coming of Kyros, during the ages of anarchy and discord, powerful knowledge in undeserving hands leveled empires without thought or mercy. Kyros has no desire to revisit those dark times. That's a stupid question, so I'm not going to ask that. That's going to make him mad. Previous questions. No more questions. Be on your way. Awesome. Yeah, I don't like leaving dialogue unexplored because it has the potential of generating wrath with Tunon. See if anyone has anything new to say. So I did say something about talking to my peers. Let's see if my peers have anything new to say. Alright, let me take a look at the map real fast. Let's see. So this is highlighted. I think that's where we have to go next. Ironhearth is also available. It'd probably be worth going back to the Mountain Spire first to check out those merchants. But we'll save that for next time. So I'm going to call the episode here. Next one we'll leave Tunon's court and start our mission, which is Trial of Archons into the Maelstrom, Weight of Aegis, or Aegis. We need to talk to Barrick about that. Can we speak to him here? No, we'll talk to him later. Either way. Then Stirring Visions. Yeah, so we have a few quests to pursue. Either way, thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys in the next episode.